Every day they come in from the countryside to bus stations in the more seedy parts of town. They're looking for friends and family who have come before them. They're hoping to find work. They're hoping to find better clinics and better schools for their kids. If they're lucky, there's someone to meet them. But if they're not lucky, the big city can be an unwelcoming place where the streets are not paved with gold.
They arrive here, but now they don't have the opportunities that the previous migrants had. So they are not having a nice time, and it's very difficult for them because they don't have a job, so they have just to survive.
They have come to Lima, the capital of Peru in South America. It is a crowded city where many have set up homes before. They may not welcome newcomers.
People in Lima or in any big city in the country will say, oh, this is, Serrano, this is a newcomer. What are you doing here? Come back to your place, They are going to refuse to talk to them, to accept them. So they are going to feel, like a marginalized person. In fact, during a long time, they are going to feel marginal.
Jose came to Lima with his wife and 3 children. He had a job making jewelry, but was made redundant. But he still believes life will be better in the city.
I left the place I was born to look for a better life and for a better future for my children. So the children could get a profession and have a better life from the one we have had ourselves. My hope is that every one of them learns a profession.
Somehow Jose has managed to put together a home for his family. He's convinced his children will stand a better chance in their city home, even though they haven't yet found a place in the local school. There's little left of the country but the chickens. Jose's sure his daughter won't regret their move.
They are better off than I was before, because in my time, where we lived, there wasn't any television, only radio. But now through television, children with different programs for children, through these their thoughts become more developed.
100 miles outside Lima, they're picking the mandarin crop. Land reform in Peru has split up some of the great old estates, giving people more of a stake in the land. But that hasn't been enough to stop jobs in agriculture vanishing. While fruit may still be picked by hand, other jobs are now mechanized. There's little future on the land for the next generation.
You have more and more agrarian reform, which is going to make agriculture so efficient that lots of people, especially in third world countries, who lived in subsistence environments or did small farm jobs, are going to get almost expelled from that environment. So you're going to have a situation where the only place where exploring other opportunities is cities.
And so people like Maria also come to Lima. For her, every customer is now an opportunity. And there are always customers, whereas in the country there was only one harvest, assuming you're lucky with the weather.
Well, people come here because there is drought in the countryside, the same as we have here. But even when the crops do grow, there is nothing else there. So we come here looking for a job. When we are in the countryside, we think we'll be better off in the city. But when we come to Lima, we find out something else. We find that there is no work, that we need to breed animals or sell something. Something that will give you a secure income. There in the countryside, there are only secondary schools and no colleges. For example, there is no electricity there, there is no water, and there is nothing there to bring us forward in life. So we tried to look for something better, and that's why we stayed here.
But it's still a struggle, and Maria hasn't forgotten her country skills. With her family, she's turning the empty desert land around her home into a kind of miniature farm. Her advice to newcomers: the city can be as unwelcoming as its stony landscape.
My advice would be that one member of the family comes first, to be able to establish themselves and get a home, a house, and to get used to the place, so the people that follow understand where they're coming to. Unlike us, we arrived here and we just found stones, wild plants and nothing else. During the evening we used to listen to wild animals, and during the day we didn't have anything else to look at apart from the sun in the sky.
But now, with their animals and a shop, Maria and her family have turned the desert into a home. Maria's entrepreneurial activities pay for all the family's food. Her husband's wages pay for their house. Living in Lima is a woman's work as well as a man's, perhaps more so. Women are mothers, homemakers, and must often earn a living too. Many women do fine in the city, but others don't.
You see, in most of the developing countries, normally, of course, women, you find that these are people who have moved from the countryside. They don't have requisite education. They don't have skills. They're not able to find a job. They don't have necessarily the social networks which normally, keep rural communities together, solidarity, helping each other. Traditional safety nets break down when you reach the cities, so that women and children find themselves on their own. So these women earn livelihoods in very menial activities, grinding stone, begging, so you find that the pockets of poverty, these are the poor of the poor.
In Lima, being among the poorest of the poor can be a rough fate. But many women have little choice, whether they come from the fields or from the more remote forests of the Andes. The woman who looks after this family says they came to Lima after timber traders had cut all the trees in their neighborhood down.
Life in the forest is not what it used to be. Before, it was very nice, but the situation has just got worse. My father used to work in the wood trade, but now there is no wood trade left. There is not even enough to eat. This is why we came to Lima, because we are better off here. Here in Lima, we can work, and by working, we can help the children to study and to get ahead. Back in the forest, there was no money. Here in Lima, it's different.
But raising a family on the desert slopes of Lima can be tough for men too. Maria's husband Gregorio, who's a water engineer, wonders if the hassle of city life is worthwhile.
When I finished my secondary studies, I came here to enroll in college. But I didn't get in. So I looked for a job, and I stay here. I've been here for 12 years, I think. It's different. It's very, very different here. Before, I thought that it would be better. But now that I go back home every year, I think things are better there. They are quieter there.
So who's helping families like Gregorio's? Since this is a desert, Lima lays on water for the families who come here. And Peru, unusually in the developing world, does recognize squatters' rights to land.
When they are in their plot, in the same place they are going to stay for a long time because that's their place, it belongs to them, then the central government, at this moment, very soon, the municipality again, will give them the land title. And after that, it will arrive the water connection, and then the water and the sewage connection, and then the electricity connection, and then services like school and health services, and then the communal kitchen, and then a glass of milk, and etc. You know, the social network will appear, and they will survive in that way.
But life in Lima can be a no-win game for children as well as adults. As the old family structures break down, children while away their time in cafes and bars. And many end up in the street instead of the schoolroom.
There are more than 1 million children working in Lima, just in Lima, on the streets mainly, selling candies, cleaning cars, taking care of cars, carrying things. Some children, they are working at houses. It's very sad. It's very sad because families are broken. Sometimes you see just one mother taking care of the children. The father is gone, and the mother has to work, and the children are alone. There is nobody else there. They don't belong anymore to this community that they used to live, you know, together with other families or friends that will take care anyway, the children. All adults will be there. But when there are not so many adults, there are many dangerous situations for children.
Street kids will be just one of the problems on the agenda of the UN's City Summit Review, known as Istanbul +5, in New York in June 2001. The UN is already collecting disturbing evidence.
There are more and more cases of children suffering because they have to constantly live under the threat of their homes being evicted, where there is no guarantee of being able to go to school, where they have to live in situations where obviously there isn't enough food, and there is a constant threat also from the police, from landlords, from other forces in society.
As the city develops, so do the rubbish mountains. But even among the garbage dumps, Lima's city council is ecology conscious. And NGOs too are working to make life better for the new city migrants. Jorge works for a garbage collection project organised by the NGO EcoCity.
Este programa está promovido por una organización no gubernamental que se llama Ciudad.
This project has been created by the NGO EcoCity. The first project that EcoCity organized here in Las Brisas was rubbish collection. And it's working thanks to the collaboration of the people who have responded in a very positive way. They know it will help them to avoid epidemics of illnesses and disease, especially for all the children.
Help from NGOs, help from the city, but also help from each other. Both the council and organisations like EcoCity are trying to help squatters organise themselves. Making the stony ground into a park is just the beginning.
First of all, they always react, okay, let's organise the park committee. Yeah, they know, it's inside them. They know that if they want to get something, they have to be organised. So its organization is just part of the tradition in these settlements. And then appears a park committee. And this park committee start working for it. And they know that they are representing the feelings and the expectations of the whole community. And they feel important because of that. It is not a matter of giving them fish, but teaching them how to fish. Yeah, that's the idea. So everything we are doing, it's more or less, it's the pretext to help them to be themselves, to be part of a society, to support and increase their self-esteem. Because without self-esteem, there are no possibilities to development.
Lima is, who knows, one of the great megacities of the developing world in the future. But while everyone agrees the poor here need help, there is a debate over how best to give it. And the focus of that debate is housing and land rights. Are they a human right or a commodity?
The idea that people can only get minimum quality housing if they can pay for it, that anyone that does not have the money to buy housing on the open market doesn't deserve housing. I think that's a devastating, negative, evil idea. Housing ought to be treated as something that people have as a right. The question of where they live is not really under their control. They don't come voluntarily because they want to live in a favela. They're lured there, in effect. Sometimes they're pushed off the land because they can no longer make a living on a family farm. So they come to the city looking for a better way of life, and I think it's one of the functions of government to help them achieve their goal.
On the outskirts of Lima, shantytowns spread further into the desert. Advocates of free market solutions agree that people here need help, but question whether giving them subsidized housing and land rights, which the rural poor don't have, is really the right thing to do.
I certainly have nothing against giving squatters more land. Your heart goes out to these people, it would be a good thing. However, you create a policy where you have valuable land on the edge of the city, you come to the edge of the city, you get that land, you squat on it and you get it. This creates a perverse incentive for people to come to the edges of urban areas. You don't want those perverse incentives. You want to create a spatially neutral policy that helps the poor everywhere. Okay, so having a specific squatters policy is clearly not the right thing to do. You want a policy that actually focuses on housing for the poor everywhere.
How do you react to the argument that it may be short-sighted to help new migrants in cities because it only encourages more?
You remind me of all the people in the city of Mumbai who say don't give toilets to the poor so that'll discourage them from coming in. People don't come to the city to go to the toilet or to have a glass of water. They come out of a much more complex basket of needs and aspirations. And they're going to be there.
But the argument is that if you help them with land rights and basic services, as soon as they've come to the city, then more and more people will come and it gets out of control.
I think that is the kind of argument that comes from a mindset which assumes that that it's my city and I have to protect its resources and rights for me and mine. And so anybody else is them. And I think that's the real crisis today in all cities. It's citizenship is not universal. It's like we and they.
It's election time in Peru, time to argue over different visions of the cities of the future. In Peru, politicians have often promoted the growth of cities. They've handed out subsidies to favoured urban electors. The policy of giving new settlers land rights goes back to the days when Peru was a dictatorship.
During the 70s, we had a very interesting president, which used to be a dictator, military dictatorship. But he said, okay, none of these lands belongs to anyone, belongs to the state. Come back to my position, and if it's mine, all this land is mine, so I will decide to give this land to these people who claims for it and who needs for it, the land to the people.
And so, the free marketeers claim, the often monstrous growth of the world's great cities has been the legacy not of capitalism unchecked by regulation, but of dictatorship unchecked by democracy.
politics lies behind a lot of the cities that are overly large, that they tend to show up. The average largest city in a dictatorship is 50% larger than the average largest city in a democracy. So places where the political systems don't protect the rights of people in the hinterland or people in smaller cities, where if you're in the capital you get stuff and you're not in the capital you don't get stuff. This creates a massive distortion to flow to the largest cities. And yeah, we should worry about that stuff because it creates massive agglomerations that are not produced by any real economic force.
So the more democracy, the fairer shares for all, the less likely you're saying you are to get these
megacities. It's actually also true that the more openness at the economic level, the more trade you have, the smaller are the largest cities. That closed economies actually have megacities much more so than open economies do.
Still, it's not surprising there's widespread support for schemes to help people cope with the problems of city life. Problems like those faced by working mothers with kids too young to go to school. This creche is supported by the city and was started by a worker at a charity.
There are mothers who need to work. They have children and don't have anyone to leave them with. They don't have help. And then there are the abandoned mothers who have to travel a long way to work and have nowhere to leave their children. This is why I got the idea of providing help for these working mothers, and that's why I'm here.
After the creche, the city school. Those who believe cities should have special favours say that subsidising city schools and creches will help everyone.
The possibility of a young child from a slum getting an education, getting better health services in the city is better than, say, in a village, even today. So if, for instance, national governments, municipalities, see this as an opportunity that you have concentrated large groups of people, you can use economies of scale to bring in new quality education or to do improved training, then you have a whole new human resource which is trained, which then makes that city competitive to host what you call the fruits of globalization, which is business coming in.
And business is coming in to downtown Lima. Migrants, whether they're helped or not, will continue to seize the opportunities it offers. There is still poverty on the streets, but there was just as much poverty back in the countryside. It was simply better hidden.
We should not confuse the rise of megacities with the rise of inequality and poverty. Okay? It makes poverty visible, but it doesn't necessarily in any sense increase poverty. Rural areas in less developed countries are not well off. And the movement of the poor to cities makes visible to us. We see the favelas. We are troubled by them in a way that we didn't when the poor were living in rural areas. But this doesn't mean that urbanization is the culprit.
You mean there may have been there was poverty there before?
There was poverty there before. It just wasn't. It was hidden, and now it's visible.
By the end of the decade, most people in the world will live in towns and cities. Most people, it seems, agree with the people of Lima that for all the complaints, it's in cities where they'll find the opportunities for a better life.
Everybody knows that this is Lima the horrible. Every migrant will say that. I am better, I am living better, my children are studying well, but this is horrible. I don't like it. But we have food. I have a job. And they are going to school.
Ask people how to improve things in the city, Liliana's NGO has found, and they will disagree. So instead, Echo City asked the people it helps to draw their hopes for the future, people like Grimelda.
Bueno, mi dibujo ha sido de que
Well, my picture includes a street, good roads. We had a little place. We also had a church. We had a church on the hill, because for us the church is very far away. I drew all of that. In reality, all of this will be very difficult to get. Hopefully, we will get the church because some nuns have visited us and they will build us a church. That's what they're planning to build.
Churches, schools, better roads. When people in Lima draw what they want, they discover something that's as simple as it's true. and which is probably true in every other city in the world.
That they discover, which always happens, that's for sure, that most of them are dreaming more or less the same. So they have common dreamings, common visions. They can share that vision. And they start to think that maybe what they were dreaming is not so impossible, you know? It is not just a dream.
Just